Welcome back to News at 6. This hour we have the latest world issues for you.
Breaking news for today, the conflict over the Senkaku Islands between Japan and China, they both have different claims. Japan's claim states that in the 19th century, for 10 years, it studied the islands and they were sure that the islands were uninhabited. And on January 14, 1895, Japan formally incorporated the islands into their territory. During World War II, Japan lost the islands along with more of their land to the United States. Then in 1971, under the Okinawa Reversion Deal, Japan was granted back and its land, including the islands. China only used the islands as a map marker in the ancient times, and Japan technically owns the islands because they're leasing it out. However, China has got a different story. They are stating that the islands have been a part of them since ancient times, and that they have used the area as important fishing grounds. China did own the islands at one point, but then in 1895, Japan took over the province of Taiwan, which included the islands, but later on in the Treaty of San Francisco in 1970s, Taiwan went back to China. However, the islands were not a part of the deal, but Taiwan's leader at the time was deep in the US pocket. Therefore, they claim it was not fair and the islands should have been.
Every country is involved socially by this crisis. However, no one is currently living on the island, which instead of looking at the social implications, you could look at what the future holds and how the island is going to be looking in the future. So far, it looks like this crisis is only going to get worse and worse because neither side will back down and military forces will start to get involved. Already, China has already started to monitor the island and Japan troops are going to be said to be set on the island. There hasn't been any deaths, yet more economic impacts towards the countries and not affecting many civilians, although one ship captain already tried to show his political point by jamming his ship into two Coast Guard ships containing guns and weapons, willing to risk his freedom to prove his point that the land belongs to China. It has been more about personal views than socially.
Now we're heading over to Mitch on scene,
who is with a special guest, an expert on these islands.
Senkaku Islands are a hot topic on the eastern coast of Asia right now, mainly for the economic advantages the country who owns them will receive. For starters, there are massive reserves of oil and natural gas on the islands. This means that whoever officially owns them owns the rights to start drilling for the oil in the area. Obviously, oil is a very valuable resource right now, and the country selling it will receive a huge bolster in their economy. Furthermore, the waters around the islands are chock full of fish, meaning that the area is very attractive for those in the fishing market. Obviously, the country that owns these islands will be able to govern who and where people are able to fish in the area, meaning they can tax certain areas and get a certain amount of profit from the people fishing there. Also, the country who owns these islands will be able to control the channels in which ships are able to travel in the area. This means that at any point, the owner could block off certain waterways or trading routes if they see fit, meaning that others may have to pay taxes or certain fines if they want to get through certain areas. So clearly, these islands hold a substantial stake in the surrounding area's economy. So now, here's an expert on the political side of these islands.
There are many political impacts of the Senkaku Islands conflict in the South China Sea. One of the main political impacts is the freeze on Japanese-Chinese relations. As a result, Japan has actually changed its constitution, which has gone from a pacifist to a more militaristic view. Its leader, Shinzo Abe, has actually just moved it so that it can now allow attacks on any threats to Japan or any threats to its allies, rather than its previous system, which was just threats to Japan itself. So any invasion that actually would land on Japanese shores. So now this shift has brought a lot of controversy in Japan. For example, one of the only survivors of the Hiroshima nuclear blast spoke up on the anniversary of the event to describe how this move would actually harm Japan's relationship with the entire world and how it would be a massive mistake. It's also mobilized the Japanese young people who have been at the moment pretty politically apathetic to this hot topic issue. So as well as this, Japan has now sent 150 troops and satellites to an island, the Yonaguni Island, just south of the Senkaku Islands, and it now is able to monitor all of the ships and airplanes that go by. And so this move has put extra pressure on China and caused them to react in a very economical way. They have suspended all their rare earth elements from going to Japan. This is really important because rare earth elements are designed just for moving for the creation of technological goods, from cars, TVs, to even nuclear control panels. So in anything, Japan's technology sector will not be able to cope without imports from elsewhere or its own stockpile. As well as this, China has also set up an airspace around the Senkaku Islands, which it claims as its own. This has been ignored by Japan and its principal ally, the US, and will continue to be ignored for the foreseeable future. As well as this, China has also arrested 4 people at the Fujita Company, which is a Japanese company in China, and they've been arrested as a result of this, as a result of the boat captain getting arrested for ramming a Coast Guard ship. This was claimed by China to be an invalid and unlawful use of force.
Thanks for that, David. Now on to Yvonne with some environmental issues.
One of the reasons that the countries are trying to claim the land is due to potential oil and gas reserves that are nearby. Whoever owns the land would own the rights to drill for the oil, which could be a resource that the countries would be able to exploit to help boost the economy. However, some of the effects from drilling for oil and gas can impact the land and surrounding oceans, and include the hazards that come along with drilling for oil and gas, which is often highly dangerous and can result in oil spills that can damage the local ecosystems and harm the wildlife. When oil is drilled up, harmful chemicals are also exposed, such as arsenic, mercury, and lead. These are dangerous chemicals that can poison the local animals. Another impact is the carbon emissions that are released from running all the machinery to extrapolate the oil and gas from underneath the ocean floor, as well as currently running. Another impact is the carbon emissions that are released from running all the machinery to extrapolate the oil and gas from underneath the ocean floors, as well as currently from running the ships that are presently sailing around the islands to monitor the situation. All the negative effects that this is having could affect the quality of land, making it even more uninhabitable than what it already is, which is an important factor to consider when Japan wants to deploy soldiers to stay on the island, and they would need an adequate environment to live in.
Thanks for tuning in.
Join us back tomorrow at 6 o'clock.